I was in the middle of authorizing the annual fee for my fiancée's Centurion card when the text from the unknown number came through. "She's more into my energy, old man," the message read, followed by a mocking taunt. The attached photo showed the painting I'd bought for her last month, a private collection piece, hanging in the background of a hotel room. I smiled and immediately revoked access to all her secondary accounts. Half an hour later, her frantic call came in. "Let me explain. No need," I interrupted gently. "Just tell your little boyfriend something for me. The Porsche he groveled for, the condo, the $15,000 a month in pocket money. It all now belongs to that goddess from his art program, the one he's been worshiping for the past 3 years." The phone screen was an almost offensively bright rectangle in the dim light of my office. It wasn't the expected work email or calendar alert, but a picture message from an unknown number. My thumb swiped across the cool glass, and, as the image loaded, my eyebrow twitched, an almost imperceptible movement. A bedroom selfie. A messy hotel king-size bed, a cascade of familiar auburn curls, a woman's sprawled across the pillows. The comforter was pushed down to the waist, revealing a young man's bare torso, muscles flexed for the camera. His face, half buried in a plush pillow, wore a smug, challenging smirk. He was young, with the kind of reckless arrogance that comes from being spoiled rotten. My eyes moved past the unfamiliar face to the background. On the wall above the headboard hung a vibrant, fiercely expressive oil painting. It depicted a tangle of limbs and flowers blooming to the point of decay, the artist's unique signature visible at the edge. I'd sent a video of that painting to Chloe from Art Basel in Switzerland last month. I remember her face on a video call, her eyes sparkling as she said its passion and vitality could practically burn through the screen. I told her if she loved it, I'd buy it for our home. She demurred then, playfully insisting that such an intimate and fiery beauty should be hidden away, admired alone in the most private of corners. Apparently, that private corner was the love nest she shared with this boy. The text that followed the image popped up, winking tongue-out emoji. "Dude, Chloe says you're just a walking bank account. Boring as hell. She prefers my youth and energy. You get it? Old man." The last 2 words were deliberately spaced, designed to get under my skin. I looked at the text, then at the painting in the photo, the one I'd paid 7 figures for, the one that had just been air freighted into the city yesterday, now hanging in some anonymous hotel room, bearing silent witness to my fiancé's passionate betrayal. The only sound in the room was the low hum of the server racks. I picked up my other phone from the desk, the one for business. The screen still showed the confirmation message from a few minutes ago. The annual fee for Chloe's unlimited limit supplementary card had been paid. The amount was substantial, but to me, it was just a string of meaningless numbers. How interesting. A cold, mirthless smile touched my lips. I set down my personal phone, picked up my work phone, and unlocked it with my fingerprint. Without a moment's hesitation, I opened the banking app. I found every account, every authorized card, every linked digital payment method under Chloe's name, and selected them one by one. My finger hovered over the red "Confirm Freeze" button for a second before pressing down decisively. The screen flickered. Operation successful. I could almost hear the sound of a certain glossy, beautiful world, built and sustained by this flow of capital, beginning to groan under the strain, to splinter and crack. I tossed the phone back on the desk and leaned back into my sprawling leather office chair, steepling my fingers. Outside, the city lights were beginning to glitter against the twilight. The window reflected the cold lines of my office and my own expressionless face. I waited. The minutes ticked by. About half an hour later, my personal phone on the desk began to vibrate, a frantic, insistent buzzing. The screen lit up, went dark, and lit up again. The name Chloe flashed, accompanied by a carefully selected photo of her at her most beautiful angle. It buzzed for a full minute, paused, then started again with even more desperate persistence. I let it ring for a while before I calmly picked it up, swiped to answer, and held it away from my ear. Chloe's voice burst through the speaker, stripped of its usual curated sweetness. Now just a high-pitched, breathless panic. The background noise suggested she was running. "Arthur, let me explain. It's not what you think, that photo. It's photoshopped. Someone must be trying to frame me. Or, or maybe Liam was just drunk and messing around. I had no idea. I swear. Her words tumbled out in a rush, laced with the theatrical sob of someone caught in a lie, trying to project an image of wronged innocence. I listened patiently until she paused, either for breath or because she'd run out of excuses. "No need to explain," I said. My voice was calm and perhaps even more gentle than usual as it traveled through the line. The sobbing and excuses on the other end stopped abruptly, as if cut off by an invisible hand. All that remained was a ragged, heavy breathing that carried a sense of dread. I could picture her perfectly, makeup streaked, eyes wide with terror, her knuckles white as she gripped the phone. "Just tell your little boyfriend," I continued in that same measured, almost polite tone, each word slow and distinct. "The Porsche he practically begged for on his knees, the condo downtown, and the $15,000 a month in spending money." I paused deliberately, giving her, and possibly the person listening over her shoulder, a moment for the fear to truly sink in. "All of it," I smiled, though she couldn't see it, "now belongs to that art school goddess he's been worshipping for the last 3 years, the one who wouldn't even give him the time of day. Oh, and by the way," I added, as if it were an afterthought, "tell him I said thanks. His taste in women is clearly better than yours." There was a dead silence on the line. Even the breathing had stopped. A few seconds later, I heard a dull thud like a phone hitting the floor, followed by the crash of something fragile shattering, and finally a strangled, twisted gasp or a sob. The line went dead. The dial tone hummed monotonously. I took the phone from my ear and tossed it back onto the desk. The cold smile slowly faded from my lips. The game had just begun. In the luxurious hotel suite, Chloe stood frozen. Her phone, slick with sweat, had slipped from her grasp, landing with a soft thud on the plush carpet, the screen instantly spiderwebbing with cracks. She didn't bother to pick it up. Her fingers curled into fists, nails digging so deep in her palms they left pale crescent moons. The voice on that call, calm, gentle, had been like an ice pick, surgically shattering all her hopes and deceptions. Not the explosion of rage she'd anticipated, no hysterical accusations, not even a hint of emotion. That cool indifference was what sent a chill creeping through her bones. He knew. He knew everything. Not just about the photo, the car, the condo, the money. He'd mentioned them so casually, and then, just as casually, he'd taken them all away. It was over. The thought hit her like a bullet. She whipped her head around, her gaze locking onto Liam, who had just stepped out of the bathroom with a towel around his waist. He was grinning, holding her other phone, about to send another taunting message. Water droplets traced paths down his young, toned chest. His wet hair was plastered to his forehead, and his face still held that smug, malicious grin of a stupid boy who thinks he's won a prank and can't wait to see the fallout. "What did you send?" Chloe's voice was a shrill, unrecognizable screech. "What did you send him? That picture, that painting?" Liam was taken aback by her ferocity. His smile froze, then twisted into a pout of annoyance. "Just a picture. What's the big deal? Just wanted to spook the old guy, teach him his place." He stepped forward, trying to wrap his arms around her like usual, his tone flippant. "Don't worry, babe. What's he gonna do? You know he melts every time you play the victim. Just sweet-talk him a little." "Sweet-talk him." Chloe shoved him away as if she'd been burned, the force of it sending him stumbling back. Her eyes were bloodshot, her chest heaving. She pointed a trembling finger at the shattered phone on the floor. "He cut me off. Everything. My cards. All the money, it's gone." Liam froze, the casual smirk wiped from his face, replaced by a flicker of confusion. "What do you mean, cut off? What are you talking about?" "The money, the car, the apartment, the one you live in, the one you drive, the money you blow at clubs and on Twitch streamers. It's all gone." Chloe was screaming now, each word laced with a desperate tremor. He knows everything because of that stupid picture you sent, and that goddamn painting." The color finally started to drain from Liam's face, but he tried to hold on to his bravado. "No, that's impossible. It was just a picture. Maybe he's just trying to scare you. Call him back, cry a little, beg him." "He told me to tell you something." Chloe cut him off, her eyes looking at him as if he were already dead, or as if she were seeing her own ruined future in his face. Everything you got by groveling like a dog. Every last thing. Now, she took a deep, ragged breath, and with a kind of cruel satisfaction, repeated my words back to him, syllable by syllable. It all belongs to that goddess you worshipped for 3 years, the one who never even gave you a second glance. Clatter. The expensive, diamond-encrusted phone in Liam's hand fell to the floor, the back cover popping off. He looked as if he'd been struck by lightning, completely frozen. The blood drained from his face, leaving behind a mask of horrified disbelief. So, Sophia? He whispered the name, his eyes vacant. He shook his head violently. No, impossible. How does he know? How could he know about Sophia? He suddenly lunged forward, grabbing Chloe's shoulders, his fingers digging in like claws. He's lying. Chloe, he's lying to me, right? He's just trying to piss me off. Tell him. Explain it to him. All that stuff is yours. He can't. Mine. Chloe ripped herself from his grasp with a sharp, piercing laugh that was half a sob. Liam, don't you get it yet? It was always his. All of it, me. I was just a more expensive dog he kept on a leash, and now. She looked around the opulent, unfamiliar hotel suite, at the Hermes bag tossed on the sofa, the Porsche keys on the coffee table, the La Prairie creams on the vanity. In an instant, it had all lost its luster, becoming nothing more than cold, mocking price tags. And now, he doesn't even want the dog anymore. Her voice dropped to a numb, hollow whisper. Because of you. You brainless, stupid mutt. Liam looked as if his spine had been ripped out. He staggered backward, his legs hit the edge of the bed, and he collapsed onto the carpet. The towel fell away, but he didn't notice. He just stared blankly into space. No. Sophia. My money. My car. He mumbled, his eyes a maelstrom of furious jealousy, terror, and the profound shame of having his most pathetic secrets exposed. Why would that old bastard give it to her? That was mine. He snapped his head up, his eyes shot with blood, as if grasping at a final straw. Chloe, beg him again. Go see him. Tell him I'm sorry. I'll never do it again. It was all my fault. I can't lose all that. What will Sophia think of me? How will I ever? The words died in his throat. Chloe was staring at him with an expression of pure, glacial disgust. The infatuation and indulgence were gone, replaced by naked hatred. Get out. The single phrase was squeezed from between her clenched teeth. Liam, seemingly not hearing, continued his incoherent pleading. I said, get out. Chloe suddenly erupted. She snatched a heavy crystal ashtray from the vanity and hurled it at the floor next to him. Do you hear me? Get out of my sight. Get out. The ashtray hit the carpet with a heavy, muffled thud. The sound shocked Liam back to reality. He looked up into Chloe's completely unhinged, desperate eyes. And he finally understood. It was over. Everything was over. The Porsche, the penthouse apartment, the endless cash flow, the admiration of his friends, and the chance, the one he'd fantasized about for so long, to finally impress Sophia. All of it gone, because of one stupid picture he'd sent out of sheer arrogance and a desire to show off. An icy tide of regret and fear washed over him, drowning him completely. He sat paralyzed, his body racked with uncontrollable tremors, his face ashen and limp like a dirty dish rag. Outside, the brilliant city lights streamed through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, coldly illuminating the two figures in the room, both of whom had just been violently knocked from their pedestals. One sat collapsed on the floor, catatonic. The other stood, hyperventilating, on the verge of a total breakdown. Their world had been turned upside down in a phone call that had lasted less than 3 minutes. In my office, the only sounds were the soft clicking of my keyboard and the low hum of the servers, a constant, efficient backdrop. The silence was broken by the chime of the internal line. It was Davies, my executive assistant. Mr. Kane, his voice was as steady and professional as ever, betraying no hint of curiosity about the recent drama. The file you requested on Ms. Sophia Hayes has been updated and sent to your secure inbox. Also, a reminder that her senior thesis exhibition at SVA has a small opening reception tonight, starting at 7:30. Sophia Hayes, the only person Liam Carter followed on Instagram with notifications turned on, yet never dared to comment on her posts. The subject of more than half the photos in his phone's hidden albums. A painting major, immensely talented, with a quiet intensity. The kind of girl who, despite a modest background, radiated a natural brilliance through sheer talent and hard work. The very thing that made a guy like Liam feel both inadequate and wildly possessive. SVA, I'm used. Shall I arrange for you to attend? Or perhaps send a gift on behalf of a patron? Davies inquired. That won't be necessary, I said, closing the email client. Have the car ready. I'll go take a look myself. Of course, sir. An hour later, my black Bentley Mulsanne glided silently onto the School of Visual Arts campus. The gallery for the senior exhibition was brightly lit, buzzing with a youthful, artistic energy. The reception was in an adjacent lounge, where through the glass walls, I could see well-dressed art world figures, students, and faculty mingling. I got out of the car, told my driver to wait, and walked in alone. No one checked for invitations at the door. Inside, the air was a mix of champagne, canapes, and the warm scent of a crowd. The lighting was impeccable, each piece of art showcased to its best advantage. I found Sophia quickly. She was standing in front of a series of her paintings, speaking with an older man who looked like a critic. She wore a simple black dress that accentuated her pale skin. Her long hair was loosely pinned up, revealing a delicate jawline and a graceful neck. In profile, her expression was focused as she looked at her own work, occasionally nodding or offering a quiet response, her calm demeanor setting her slightly apart from the surrounding buzz. Her paintings. I shifted my gaze to the series before her. The theme seemed to be growth and constraint. The brushwork was both bold and intricate, the use of color conveying a sense of repressed, burgeoning power. You could see the raw talent. She was more serene in person than in the photos, like a plant growing quietly but with its own unyielding strength, a stark contrast to Liam's flashy, greasy persona. I stopped in a shadowed corner nearby, taking a glass of champagne from a passing waiter, my eyes fixed in her direction. After a moment, as if feeling the weight of my gaze, she frowned slightly. Her eyes lifted from her paintings and swept across the room in my direction. Her gaze passed over me in the shadows without pausing, moving on. She didn't know me. I raised my glass, swirling the champagne. Just then, my phone vibrated silently in my pocket. Not a call, but a rapid-fire series of texts from another unknown number. The tone was a universe away from the earlier taunt, now filled with desperate, frantic panic. Mr. Kane, sir, I'm so sorry. I swear I'm sorry. I'm an asshole. I'm garbage. I shouldn't have sent that picture. I shouldn't have touched Chloe. Please, please give me another chance. I'll give everything back. I'll apologize to Chloe. I'll be your slave. Please don't. You can't give that stuff to anyone else, especially not to Sophia. Please, I'll do anything. I'll get on my knees and beg. Just don't give it to her. Mr. Kane, answer me, please, Mr. Kane. I'm begging you. The text was a chaotic mess of pleas, promises, and hysteria. I could vividly picture the sender, sobbing, terrified, a complete wreck. Liam. It seemed Chloe had delivered my message perfectly. My gaze lifted from the frantic messages on the screen and settled back on Sophia. She had finished her conversation and was now standing alone by the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out. Her silhouette seemed a bit frail in the gallery light and a little tired. The pressures of graduation, the uncertainty of the future. Even someone as composed as her wasn't immune. I raised my phone, framed her silhouette against the window, focused, and pressed the shutter. The faint click was lost in the gallery's ambient noise. It was a good photo. The light and shadow played off her profile, capturing her pensive expression. I selected the picture, attached a short line of text, and sent it as a reply to the number that was still frantically bombarding me with pleas. This graduation gift seems to be exactly what she needs. Then I blocked the number. Silence. The gallery buzzed on, glasses clinking. I set down my nearly untouched champagne and took one last look at the quiet figure by the window. Then I turned and left. The noise of the gallery was sealed behind the heavy glass doors. The cool night air filled my lungs. The Mulsanne pulled up beside me, the driver already holding the door. Back to the office, sir, he asked quietly. No, I said, settling into the plush leather of the back seat. Take me to the Cypress Club. The Cypress Club was a members-only gallery and private dining establishment, exceptionally discreet. I sometimes met clients there I wished to keep out of the public eye. More importantly, one of its founders was an honorary professor at SVA with deep ties to the art world. The car moved through the glittering arteries of the city. I pulled out my phone and reviewed the detailed file Davies had sent on Sophia. Talented, hard-working, independent, and facing the harsh realities of her financial situation. With graduation looming, rent, art supplies, and the cost of pursuing an MFA were all significant burdens. She had already turned down several dubious gallery contracts that looked good on the surface but were traps. She was currently applying for a highly competitive overseas arts foundation grant. A clean-cut girl with a strong backbone. Liam's shallow games and flashy wealth must have seemed pathetic to her. It was no surprise he'd spent 3 years groveling without success. That was good. A backbone like that should be nurtured, not broken. The car stopped on a quiet, tree-lined street. The sign for the Cypress Club was just a single, warm yellow lamp, understated and elegant. I walked in, and the manager, recognizing me instantly, led me without a word to a private room in the back, overlooking a small Japanese garden. "Please let me know if you need anything, Mr. Kane." I nodded. After he left, I stood at the edge of the tatami mat, looking out at the meticulously arranged rock garden. Stone and sand sketched a scene of tranquil meditation. It was time. I dialed Davies on my personal phone. "Mr. Kane, 2 things." My voice was sharp in the quiet room. "First, on behalf of the Ethelred Arts Fellowship, contact Sophia Hayes from the SVA painting department. Tell her the fellowship was extremely impressed with her thesis exhibition. We recognize her talent and would like to offer her a 3-year emerging artist contract. The terms will include, but are not limited to, exclusive use of a private studio with an attached apartment, an annual $50,000 stipend for materials, a visiting scholar position at a top international art academy, and priority placement in the fellowship's affiliated galleries." On the other end of the line, Davies's breathing didn't change. I could hear the soft tap of his keyboard as he took notes. "Understood. The standard for the contract terms? Top tier. The only condition, upon signing, she is to focus solely on her creative work. The fellowship will shield her from all unnecessary commercial and social obligations." I paused. Specifically, any attempts at contact from a Liam Carter or a Chloe Vance are to be blocked entirely. "Understood. And the second thing, sir?" "Second, my gaze fell on a particularly striking rock in the garden. Get the exact model and color of Liam Carter's Porsche 911 and the full address and unit number of the condo he's living in. Have someone go to the vicinity of Sophia's apartment building right now. Present it as a surprise gift, but make sure she happens to find out that the ownership of both items has, in theory, been transferred to her. Be creative. I want it to seem accidental, but the information must be delivered." Davies was silent for a beat, then replied instantly. "Understood. It'll be handled cleanly and discreetly." "Excellent." I hung up. I sat down on the tatami mat and poured myself a glass of sake. The liquid was crisp with a faint aroma of rice. The wait would not be long. Meanwhile, in a run-down neighborhood on the other side of the city, Sophia Hayes dragged her tired body off the city bus. The reception for her thesis show hadn't brought relief, just a profound exhaustion that followed the noise. The uncertainty of her future was a heavy weight on her shoulders. Her apartment was in an old part of the city, in a building where the hallway light had been broken for months. Using the light from her phone screen, she carefully climbed the creaking wooden stairs. As she reached her door and fumbled for her keys, she heard a car door slam downstairs, followed by the voices of 2 men. "You sure this is the place? You can't even park a Porsche in this dump. You must have the wrong address," a younger voice said doubtfully. "No mistake. The title transfer just came through to my office. New owner's name is Sophia Hayes. This building. Look, I got the deed transfer right here, too. The address is right. Same unit number and everything." Another, more official-sounding voice replied, speaking loudly, as if to make sure someone overheard. "Talk about winning the lottery. This girl gets a sports car and a luxury condo overnight. I heard the place is at the Sterling on Central Park South. A 2,000-square-foot spread. What kind of luck is that?" The voices echoed clearly in the silent, old stairwell. Sophia's hand froze on her keys, her brow furrowed. "A Porsche, the Sterling. Her name? What kind of joke was this? Her first thought was that it was some new, elaborate scam. But the conversation didn't sound like it was directed at her. It sounded more like two guys complaining while verifying an address. She held her breath and listened. The men downstairs muttered a few more things about paperwork all in order, anonymous gift, and some people have all the luck before an engine started and a car drove away. The hallway fell silent again, save for the hum of an old refrigerator. Sophia stood in the darkness, her heart beating a little too fast. She shook her head, trying to dismiss the absurd encounter. It had to be a mistake. Someone with the same name, maybe, but in this building, this specific apartment. She unlocked her door and stepped into the small but tidy apartment. She dropped her bag and poured a glass of water, trying to calm her jangled nerves. A few minutes later, her phone lit up. It was an unknown number, a landline. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello, may I please speak with Sophia Hayes?" A professional, gentle female voice asked. "This is she. Who's calling?" "Ms. Hayes, hello. My name is Eleanor Vance from the Ethelred Arts Fellowship. We were in attendance at your thesis exhibition this evening, and our review committee was exceptionally impressed with your artistic talent and creative potential. After careful consideration, the fellowship would be honored to invite you to join our emerging artist program." The woman on the phone calmly and clearly laid out the terms of a contract so generous it was stunning. Every clause seemed tailor-made to solve every single one of her current problems and future anxieties. Sophia was completely floored. She stood holding the phone, her fingertips cold. It was all happening too fast. It was too unreal. Winning the lottery didn't even seem this fantastical. "Why me?" she heard herself ask, her voice laced with suspicion. "I mean, I'm honored, but this is so sudden. I need some time to—" "We completely understand your caution, Ms. Hayes." The voice remained pleasant and professional. "The fellowship's decision is based purely on artistic merit. You are welcome to review our credentials and the full contract. We believe your talent is deserving of this level of support. Please take your time to consider. There is no need for an immediate response. We will be sending the relevant documents and letter of intent to the email address registered with your university. Please look for it." The call ended politely. Sophia stood motionless, staring out the window into the dark night, her mind a tangled mess. A Porsche, a luxury condo, a fellowship worth a fortune? All of these absurd, sudden gifts felt like a massive, invisible net falling over her when she was least expecting it. She walked to the window and instinctively looked down. The street below was empty. There was no Porsche, but the words of those two men still echoed in her ears. What in the world was going on? She didn't believe in luck without a reason. At the Cypress Club, my phone screen lit up with an email notification from Davies. I opened it. The first part was a report. The fellowship's representative had spoken with Sophia Hayes as instructed. She had expressed surprise and suspicion, but had been told to expect a formal email. The second part was an attachment, a screenshot of the title transfer for a flashy blue Porsche 911. The new owner's name was redacted, but the address clearly pointed to Sophia's current residence, and a screenshot of the property details for the condo at the Sterling. Again, new owner's name redacted, address and unit number clear. The third part was a brief text report. Information successfully delivered inadvertently by delivery personnel at the target's residence. Confirmed target received the information. Highly efficient. I closed the email and finished the last of my sake. My phone vibrated again. A call this time. The name Chloe flashed on the screen. I watched it ring a few times before answering, saying nothing. Chloe's voice, a broken, hysterical sob, immediately poured out. "Arthur, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Can you please just see me? I'm begging you. It was all Liam. He seduced me. He pushed me. I wasn't thinking. I can't live without you. The cards. I'll do whatever you want from now on." In the background, I could faintly hear Liam's furious, muffled yelling. "The hell are you talking about? It was you who—" Then, the sound of a scuffle and something breaking. Chaos. I held the phone slightly away from my ear, waiting for her hysterical outburst to subside before I spoke calmly. My voice laced with a perfectly pitched note of disappointment. "Chloe, compose yourself." The crying on the other end hitched. "Those things," I reminded her lightly, "were once for you. But now, they have a more suitable, and more appreciative owner. No, Chloe let out a sharp, grief-stricken cry. Who? Who is a little bitch? Who did you give my things to? Your things. I laughed softly. Chloe, you still don't seem to understand. Nothing was ever truly yours. As for the new owner, I said casually, your little boyfriend should know her well. After all, he has hundreds of her pictures on his phone. The one he cries about, saying he'd die for her every time he gets drunk. The other end of the line went dead silent for a moment. Then, Liam's terrified, strangled roar erupted. Sophia. It's Sophia. Kane, you son of a bitch. You can't. You stay away from her. You touch her and I'll kill you. This was followed by Chloe's even more shrill scream, a cocktail of disbelief and venomous jealousy. Sophia, that broke, pretentious art student. Liam, you are. The call ended amidst a cacophony of cursing, fighting, crying, and the sharp sound of something shattering. The line went dead. I put down the phone, my face impassive. This show was getting more and more interesting. In the quiet room at the Cypress Club, only the serene light from the garden lantern and the faint aroma of sake remained. The phone screen went dark, and the hysteria that had crackled through the speaker from a world away seemed like nothing more than irrelevant static. I didn't stay at the club for long. Some gestures only need to be made once. Back in my top-floor office, the city lights had spread into a vast, glittering ocean. The low hum of the servers was the perfect white noise, allowing for a swift return to focus, stripping away useless emotion. Davies's efficiency was, as always, impeccable. The light on my encrypted internal line was blinking. Mr. Kane, go on. Both matters are handled. The fellowship's formal offer has been sent to Ms. Hayes's university email. The contract terms are clear, with no coercive clauses, only the requirement to focus on her work. She has not yet replied. Davies's voice was perfectly level. Separately, Mr. Carter and Ms. Vance had a violent altercation in the apartment at the Sterling. The building management received a noise complaint and, upon investigating, discovered property damage. Mr. Carter was extremely agitated. When he attempted to leave in his vehicle, he found it had been remotely disabled. He then engaged in further destruction of the vehicle and public property in the garage. He has been detained by building security. Ms. Vance's whereabouts are currently unknown. I grunted in acknowledgement. The permissions for the Porsche and the condo had been frozen at the same time as the credit cards. Liam's reaction was entirely predictable. Clean up. Double the compensation for any damages to the building. As for Carter, I paused. Let him cool off for a night. If he's still causing trouble in the morning, have him taken to a place where he can cool off for a few more days. Understood. I hung up. I opened my email. The message from the Ethelred Arts Fellowship, meticulously worded and full of praise, was there with my private email address CC'd. The attached PDF of the contract was beautifully designed, professional, and irresistible. How would Sophia choose? She would be cautious, suspicious, but she couldn't refuse. This wasn't a handout. It was validation. It was the most direct and most potent affirmation of her talent. For a recent graduate struggling between financial pressure and artistic ambition, it was an almost impossible offer to resist. I closed the email and turned my attention back to the files for an upcoming acquisition. Time passed quietly until my personal phone lit up again. No call, no text. It was a contact request on WhatsApp. The request message was simple. Sophia Hayes. There she is. I put down my pen, leaned back in my chair, and tapped my fingers on the cool metal edge of my phone. I didn't accept immediately. I waited for about 10 minutes before tapping accept. The chat window opened. The status at the top read typing. For a few seconds, then stopped. This happened a few times. Clearly, she was choosing her words carefully. Finally, a message appeared. Mr. Kane. Cautious. Probing. I replied, "Who is this?" Again, the typing. Status appeared, this time for longer. "This is Sophia Hayes. I'm a recent graduate from the SVA painting department. I received a contract offer from the Ethelred Arts Fellowship and some other information regarding a vehicle and a property. I need to know if you are connected to any of this." Direct, but she left herself an out. She didn't mention Liam, didn't mention the sort of drama. She went straight to the heart of the matter. I smiled. A smart girl. The fellowship recognizes your talent, I replied, sidestepping the direct question. The scale of this recognition is beyond anything I can comprehend. Mr. Kane, I don't believe in gifts without strings attached, she typed back quickly, her words sharp with clarity and conviction. And so, I want to know why, or rather, what you want from me in return. She was practically cross-examining me. The directness was, in its own way, refreshing. I considered for a moment. With intelligent people, a little honesty can go a long way. To be entertained, I typed. To watch a show, and to ensure that a significant talent doesn't go to waste. Are you satisfied with that answer, Miss Hayes? She went silent. The typing indicator vanished for a long time. I could picture her on the other end of the line, brow furrowed, trying to decipher the true meaning behind my half-sincere, half-cynical words. After several minutes, a show, she sent back a single word. A small drama about betrayal and consequences. You are a part of it, but you are not a pawn. Think of yourself as an unexpected beneficiary. I decided to reveal a little more. You don't need to feel burdened. The fellowship contract is real and valid. The conflicts that do not concern you will not touch you. All you need to decide is whether or not you will accept this investment in your talent. Another long silence. Then, I need time to think. Of course. Thank you for your candor. You're welcome. The conversation seemed to be over. But I added one more line. If you encounter any unwanted harassment in the near future, you can contact my assistant, Mr. Davies, directly. His number is 212-555-0182. He will handle it. This time, her reply was swift. Okay, thank you. The conversation ended. I set my phone aside. The seed had been planted. She would accept, not just for practical reasons, but because the validation that comes from being recognized by a top-tier institution, the seductive allure of it, is something that even the most clear-headed person can't completely resist. As for Liam and Chloe, I opened a separate monitoring application. A few red dots moved across a map of the city. One, representing Chloe's phone, was stationary outside a luxury spa I had taken her to once, a members-only establishment. She was probably seeking refuge there, or perhaps hoping to run into an old acquaintance who might plead her case. Naive. The other red dot, Liam's, was still fixed at the parking garage of the Sterling. It hadn't moved. It seemed security was taking good care of him. I closed the application. The night was still young. The next morning, events began to accelerate. Davies's internal line report was brief and to the point. Mr. Hayes has formally replied to the fellowship via email. She has agreed in principle to the terms of the contract and wishes to discuss some minor details. Our legal team is following up. Additionally, Mr. Carter left the Sterling at 8 a.m. His condition was poor. He returned to his rented room near the university. Our surveillance indicates he has ordered a significant quantity of alcohol through multiple delivery apps. Ms. Vance has attempted to contact you through several mutual acquaintances, all of whom have been rebuffed. She is still at the spa, but her membership was system revoked at midnight, and all her credit lines have been frozen. We anticipate she will be leaving shortly. On the media front, a few tabloids and blogs received anonymous tips regarding a dispute among residents of the Sterling, and SVA graduate receives mysterious multi-million-dollar backing. As per your instructions, all stories have been suppressed, and the source is being traced. Preliminary findings point to one of Ms. Vance's socialite friends, a frequent luxury shopping companion. Take care of it. My order was simple. Those insignificant gnats were not welcome at my table. Understood. Near noon, Davies reported again, this time with an almost imperceptible hint of amusement in his voice. Mr. Carter's delivery orders have arrived. Simultaneously, as per your instructions, we sent him a gift in Ms. Hayes's name. Oh, a beautifully framed, high-resolution print of one of Ms. Hayes's graduation exhibition pieces. And Davies paused delicately. A case of the highest quality hangover cure and liver support supplements. The courier required a signature in person and thoughtfully relayed Ms. Hayes's concerns. Liam, you should drink less. It's bad for your health. You don't need to worry about my career path anymore. I could almost picture the twisted expression on Liam's face upon receiving that gift. Fueled by alcohol, that message of concern from his goddess would be more devastating than any insult. His reaction, according to the delivery person, Mr. Carter, was first in disbelief, then had a complete emotional breakdown. He smashed the liquor bottles and the frame print. The current state of his apartment is chaotic. Should we intervene? No, just watch, I said coolly. Let him break. The more complete, the better. In the afternoon, the storm finally reached its apex. My personal phone rang. It was the number of a man with some local influence, Chloe's father, a minor real estate developer who had gotten rich through a combination of luck and shrewdness, but had never managed to break into the inner circle. His business had been struggling for years, relying heavily on the project resources he could access through his daughter's connection to me. The moment I answered, the voice on the other end was not the usual ingratiating, familiar tone, but one trembling with suppressed rage and panic. Arthur, my boy. He tried to maintain the familiar address, but sounded forced. What in the world is going on? Chloe is crying her eyes out, she said. She said you cut off all her. And that punk. Was there some kind of misunderstanding? Chloe is young. She doesn't know any better. If she did something to upset you, for my sake. Mr. Vance? I cut him off, my voice devoid of warmth. Whatever was between Chloe and me is over. There is no misunderstanding. He choked on his words, his breathing heavy. Oh, over. Arthur, you can't just say that. You two were about to be married. What am I supposed to tell people? Was it that little punk? Mr. Vance? I interrupted again, my tone hardening slightly. It seems you are not fully aware of the situation. Your daughter was using my money to keep a college student as her boy toy, who then sent me pictures of them in bed as a taunt. I don't think this is a matter of you asking me if there was a misunderstanding. I think this is a matter of me asking you about the Vance family's standards of decency. Dead silence. I could hear a sharp intake of breath and the faint clicking of chattering teeth. No, that's impossible. Chloe, she wouldn't. He stammered, clearly stunned by the raw, ugly truth. As for that downtown revitalization project you were discussing with my team, I continued in a measured tone. Given the change in our relationship, and to avoid any appearance of impropriety, I will be asking the project board to reevaluate all potential partners' qualifications and reputations. I'm afraid things will have to be put on hold. No, Mr. Kane, Arthur. Mr. Vance's voice cracked, filled with the primal fear of a man watching his livelihood crumble. All pretense of dignity was gone. The project can't be stopped. It's the only thing keeping my company afloat. You can't. It was all Chloe's fault. I failed as a father. I'll make her get on her knees and apologize to you. You can punish her however you want. Please have mercy. Mr. Vance, my voice turned to ice. Business is business. Your family matters are your own to clean up. My decision is final. With that, I hung up, giving him no further opportunity to plead. The world was quiet again. I knew that the man on the other end of that line was now facing a crisis far more severe than his daughter's broken engagement, and that crisis would be brought down entirely on Chloe's head. That is what you call a consequence. As the sun set, casting a blood-red glow across my office, Davies's daily summary email arrived. Sophia Hayes had signed the formal contract with the fellowship. The first installment of her funding had been disbursed. She seemed relieved, but also deeply bewildered. She was arranging to move her belongings into the studio apartment provided by the fellowship in the city's arts district. Liam Carter was dead drunk. He had been crying and smashing things in his apartment, and had even attempted to cut his wrists with a broken bottle. He was stopped by his roommate and was now in the hospital having his stomach pumped. All of his social media accounts had gone dark. Chloe had been dragged home from the spa by her furious father. According to a witness, he had slapped her hard across the face in the parking garage before shoving her into the car. The Vance family's company stock was expected to plummet when a market opened. Everything was on track. I closed my laptop and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. Below me, the city was a tapestry of light, a stage for countless comedies and tragedies. A betrayal, a farce. It seemed the curtain should be falling. But I knew that for some people, the real hell was just beginning, and my entertainment, perhaps, had only just found its overture. My phone vibrated again. It was a WhatsApp message from Sophia. Mr. Kane, I moved into the studio. It's very nice. Thank you. Attached was a photo. Through the window, the red brick buildings of the Arts District were visible against the sunset. An unfinished painting rested on an easel. I looked at it, but did not reply. Some distances must be maintained. Some postures must be held. The internal line chimed again, breaking the silence. Mr. Kane, we have an update from the hospital. Mr. Carter is stable after the gastric lavage, but his emotional state is highly volatile. He was moved to a general ward and has been demanding to see you, or Ms. Hayes. The hospital staff is concerned he will disturb other patients. My fingers tapped lightly on a desk. See Sophia? He still had the audacity. Tell him he can see me. On one condition. First, he needs to write down every detail of his affair with Chloe. Times, places, how much money was spent, what was said, every last word. When he's finished, I will consider seeing him. My voice was flat. And get him a private room. Put on my account. Let him write in peace. Understood. Davies knew exactly what that meant. The confession would be another sword hanging over Chloe and her family, and it would be the final blow to shatter any of Liam's remaining delusions. Forcing him to document his own pathetic behavior was more effective than any torture. And Chloe, Mr. Vance took her home. It seems there was a major confrontation. Our people near the Vance residence heard shouting and the sound of things being smashed. The lights were on all night, and lawyers and company executives were seen coming and going. They are likely in crisis mode, trying to mitigate the fallout from the suspended project. Keep an eye on it. Let the Vances clean up their own mess. After hanging up, I remembered something else. I picked up my personal phone and found a number I had almost never used. The number of the elderly, respected dean of SVA. I had donated a gallery to the school during an expansion years ago and had met him once. The phone rang a few times before it was answered. The old man's voice was gentle but questioning. Hello, who is this? Dean Miller, good evening. My apologies for the late call. This is Arthur Kane. There was a pause on the other end. Then his tone became warm and cautious. Oh, Mr. Kane, hello. Forgive me, I didn't recognize the number. To what do I owe the pleasure of this call? He had clearly heard some of the whispers, and his tone was carefully probing. The pleasure is all mine. I just had a small matter I hope to get your advice on, or perhaps to make a suggestion. My tone was deliberately respectful. Please, whatever my school can do. I understand you have a remarkably talented graduate from your painting department this year, a Ms. Sophia Hayes, I said, getting straight to the point. Her work is brilliant, full of spirit. A talent like that deserves the best possible cultivation. I heard she recently received a significant fellowship, which is wonderful news. I was just hoping that, at the institutional level, she might also receive some additional consideration, perhaps the university's nomination for the Emerging Artist Pavilion at next year's Venice Biennale, or priority consideration for a teaching assistant position. After all, nurturing talent requires support from all sides. My words were carefully chosen, a suggestion, not a demand. Dean Miller was a shrewd man. He immediately understood the implication. The name Sophia Hayes was now linked to someone he could not afford to offend. Besides, my suggestion was beneficial to both the student and the school. Mr. Kane, rest assured, I've seen Ms. Hayes' work, and it is truly outstanding. She is one of our most promising graduates. The opportunities you mention are things we have considered, but the slots are limited. However, for a student who has both the talent and this level of external validation, she absolutely should be a priority for nomination. I will convene a meeting tomorrow morning to discuss this. I will ensure a satisfactory arrangement for you and for Ms. Hayes. It's not arrangement for me. It's for the talent. I corrected him gently. Yes, of course. For the student's future, he quickly agreed. After a few more pleasantries, I ended the call. It was a necessary move. To truly elevate Sophia, the support of her alma mater was crucial. I wanted her path to be paved with gold, a stark, cruel contrast to the muddy pit where Liam and Chloe were now struggling. Having set these pieces in motion, I felt a flicker of weariness. But it wasn't time to rest. I had my driver take me to the Sterling, not to the condo that had already changed hands, but to the private sky lounge on the top floor. I kept a private tea room there, with a panoramic view of the city. I sat in the quiet room, slowly brewing a pot of pu'er tea. The liquor was a deep, clear red, its aroma rich and earthy. About an hour later, a message from Davies arrived. Mr. Kane, Carter's confession is complete. The details are extensive. He has repeatedly asked if he can see you now. Bring him here, to the Sky Lounge at the Sterling. I replied, Yes, sir. Another half an hour passed before a soft knock came at the door. Enter. Davies opened the door, followed by two well-built security men in black suits, who were assisting Liam Carter. In just over a day, the once arrogant young man had completely transformed. His hair was a mess, his face was a deathly pale, his eyes were sunken, and his lips were chapped and peeling from the stomach pumping in sheer terror. He was still wearing a wrinkled hospital gown under a hastily thrown-on jacket and smelled of a foul mixture of stale liquor, antiseptic, and despair. His gaze was unfocused until it landed on me. It sharpened instantly, filled with the manic light of a drowning man spotting a lifeline. Yet he trembled violently with fear. Mr. Kane, he rasped, breaking free from the security guards and scrambling toward the tea table, trying to grab my trousers. One of the guards stepped forward impassively, blocking him. I waved my hand, dismissing the guards and Davies. The door closed, leaving the two of us alone. I continued to pour the tea, my movements slow and deliberate, as if he wasn't there. Mr. Kane, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I'm not human. I'm an animal. Please forgive me. I wrote the confession. I wrote it all. It was Chloe. Chloe seduced me first. She said you were busy, that she was lonely. I was bewitched. Oh, I lifted my teacup, blew on the surface, and glanced at him. And did she hold your hand and force you to send the picture, too? Liam choked, his face turning an even grayer shade. His lips trembled, unable to form an excuse. That Porsche. Did you enjoy driving it? I changed the subject, my tone as casual as if I were asking about the weather. Liam's body was racked with violent tremors. No, I didn't. I'm scum. I don't deserve it. Mr. Kane, the car. The apartment. Take them back. I don't want anything. Just please. Please don't give them to Sophia. I'm begging you. He had circled back to his deepest fear, and he started knocking his head on the expensive rug, the sound a series of dull thuds. Why can't I give them to Sophia? I set down my cup and looked at him. Don't you like her? You've had a crush on her for 3 years, have hundreds of her photos on your phone. You whisper her name when you're drunk. Now that she has a brighter future, a better life, shouldn't you be happy for her? My words were like poisoned daggers, twisting into his most vulnerable spots. Liam jerked his head up, his face a grotesque mask of shame, jealousy, and terror. No, it's not like that. I can't let her see me like this. I can't let her know that He couldn't finish, unable to bear the agony of being so utterly humiliated and trampled in front of the woman he had placed on a pedestal. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I said, as if just remembering. SVA just decided to nominate Sophia for the Emerging Artist Pavilion at next year's Venice Biennale. She's also very likely to be offered a teaching position. Her paintings will probably hang in museums around the world one day. And you? My eyes swept over his pathetic hospital gown and tear-streaked face. I smiled faintly. And this confession you wrote will likely be nothing more than a dirty footnote in her brilliant life story, one she can't even be bothered to recall. No. Liam let out an inhuman roar and lunged up from the floor, his eyes red, as if to attack me. But his body, ravaged by alcohol and a complete breakdown, gave out. He stumbled and fell, curling into a ball on the floor, howling and sobbing like a wounded animal. I watched his breakdown with cold detachment. When his sobs subsided a little, I spoke slowly. In light of the sincerity of your confession, I'll give you 2 choices. Liam's crying stopped abruptly. He looked up, summoning his last ounce of strength to look at me, like a prisoner awaiting his sentence. 1. You take that face and that body of yours and find some rich old woman with peculiar tastes. You might be able to trade it for enough money to continue your life of debauchery. 2. I give you a sum of money, enough for you to leave this city and start over somewhere no one knows you, on the condition that you never, ever appear anywhere near me, Chloe, and especially Sophia, ever again. If I hear so much as a whisper about you in this city, I'll let the sentence hang, but the ice in my eyes said everything. Liam lay on the floor, breathing heavily, his eyes a war of emotions. The first choice was utter humiliation. The second was exile, but at least it was a chance to live. I choose the second one. He squeezed the words out from between clenched teeth, fresh tears of shame and despair welling in his eyes. Smart. I took out my phone and sent a message to Davies. Someone will be here to handle the paperwork. The money will be in your new account by morning. For tonight, you can rest here. I stood up, straightened my suit, and without another glance at the pathetic heap on the floor, walked to the door. Davies and the security guard were waiting silently outside. Take care of it, I ordered and walked away. Behind me, the door to the tea room closed softly, sealing away the nauseating stench of despair. I walked out onto the Sky Lounge's terrace. The cool night wind cleared my head of the room's lingering foulness. The city below remained a dazzling spectacle of light. My phone vibrated. A new WhatsApp message from Sophia. It was a picture. In the warm light of her new studio, an easel stood ready, a simple meal laid out on a small table beside it. The caption read, starting to settle in, "The light here is great for painting at night." This time, I replied with 2 words. Good work. In this game, you always need something bright to contrast with the filth and the ugliness. And my methods were only just beginning to unfold. The cold wind on the rooftop of the Sterling did nothing to disturb my composure. Liam Carter's puddle of despair was merely an insignificant bass note in the symphony I was conducting. Back in my office, Davies's daily briefing awaited on the encrypted terminal. Liam had been sent overnight to a third-tier city in a neighboring state, his name now attached to a bank account with a sufficient balance and a gentle reminder in the form of a non-disclosure agreement. He would likely evaporate into obscurity like a drop of dirty water. The drama at the Vance household was far more theatrical. In a fit of rage, Mr. Vance had frozen his daughter's accounts, what little was left in them, and confined her to the house. Chloe had reportedly tried to contact her former best friends for help, only to be universally ignored. Some had even demanded she repay past gifts that were, in retrospect, investments. The speed with which her social circle abandoned her was a perfect illustration of the phrase, when a wall falls, everyone gives it a push. The Vance Company stock opened at its daily limit down, and creditors began to circle. The glamorous facade, held up by the fantasy of a marriage alliance, had crumbled overnight. Sophia's world, however, was blossoming. The final details of her fellowship contract were settled, the first substantial payment had arrived, and her studio was up and running. Dean Miller at SVA had been remarkably efficient. The nomination form for the Venice Biennale and an offer for a teaching assistant position had coincidentally appeared in her inbox. Her replies to the fellowship, while still cautious, were tinged with a sense of being both overwhelmed and deeply committed. Everything was proceeding as planned, but I knew that simply breaking things and watching the pieces scatter was an amateur's game. The true art lies in compelling the pieces to reassemble themselves into a new, more interesting pattern of your own design. It was time to add the final touches. I instructed Davies, on behalf of the fellowship, organize a small, private dinner to celebrate Ms. Hayes's contract. The venue will be the Starlight Room at Aura. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Aura, the city's highest and most exclusive restaurant. The Starlight Room, with its panoramic glass dome, was legendary. It was also the place where, last year, I had booked the entire floor for Chloe's birthday. She had beamed like a princess, posting a 9-photo collage to Instagram with a caption, "Thank you to my prince for putting me on top of the world," heart emoji. Davies didn't hesitate. Understood. The guest list. No need for a large one. She's just graduated. She doesn't know many people in the industry. Have 2 senior members from the fellowship board attend. Keep the atmosphere intimate and low-key. I paused, then added, "Oh, and from the fellowship's perspective, suggest that she invite a close friend or family member to share the happy occasion. It is, after all, a major milestone." "Yes, Mr. Kane." I knew Sophia had no family in the city and very few close friends. That suggestion was a subtle hook. The next evening, at Aura's Starlight Room, I did not attend personally, but the restaurant's general manager was one of my men. Through the vast, curved windows, the city lights below glittered like a spilled chest of jewels. The room was decorated with understated elegance, the long table set with fine china and champagne flutes. Sophia arrived. She wore a simple but high-quality white dress, clearly chosen with care, a nervous flush on her cheeks. The two fellowship board members, a gentle female art history professor and a sharp male director of operations, were already there to greet her with warm smiles. Everything was perfect. As I predicted, Sophia had taken the suggestion to heart. The only person she could think of to share this immense good fortune with was her roommate, a shy, quiet girl from a similarly modest background. The roommate now sat amidst the opulence, looking completely out of her depth, a mixture of awe and anxiety on her face. The surprise came halfway through the dinner, just as the main course was being served. The restaurant manager approached the fellowship's director of operations, his face a mask of polite distress, and whispered something in his ear. The director frowned, then nodded. A moment later, the heavy doors to the Starlight Room swung open. Chloe Vance was standing there. She was much thinner, wearing an out-of-season, ill-fitting dress. Her makeup was thick and heavy, a desperate attempt to cover her gaunt face and swollen eyes, but it only made her look more haggard. She clutched a handbag, her knuckles white. How she had found out about the dinner, and how she had gotten past the security downstairs, was of no concern to me. Some security breaches can be easily engineered. Her appearance instantly shattered the room's warm, celebratory atmosphere. Sophia and her roommate looked up, surprised. They didn't recognize her, but they could sense the hostility. The two fellowship board members exchanged a glance. The professor stood up, maintaining a veneer of politeness. "Excuse me, miss, have you made a mistake? This is a private event." But Chloe's eyes were like poison daggers, fixed on Sophia. She scanned her from head to toe, her gaze a toxic cocktail of insane jealousy, humiliation, and a hatred that bordered on a total breakdown. A private event. Chloe's voice was shrill and distorted as she forced a twisted smile. Celebrating what? That she crawled into my fiancé's bed? That she stole everything that was supposed to be mine? Sophia's face went pale. She shot to her feet. "Who are you? What are you talking about? Who am I?" Chloe shrieked with laughter. "I'm Arthur Kane's fiancée, Chloe Vance. That dress you're wearing. This meal you're eating, every single opportunity you've been given. It was all supposed to be mine. Mine. You're nothing but a stray dog he picked up off the street to humiliate me." The operations director stepped forward. "Ms. Vance, please, calm down. You are not welcome here. Leave immediately, or we will call security." "Calm down. How can I calm down?" Chloe violently shoved his arm away. She pointed at Sophia, her voice rising to a scream. "Do you have any idea how she got all this? Because she's his type? Because she's obedient enough? Arthur Kane, you use my money to keep another woman. You'll rot in hell for this." Her words were a chaotic, illogical tirade, but they were perfectly engineered to sling the most vicious mud. Sophia was trembling with rage. Her roommate cowered behind her. The faces of the board members were grim. "Security!" the director shouted. Several guards rushed in. Seeing them, Chloe became even more frantic. She ripped a handful of photos from her purse and threw them at Sophia. They scattered across the floor like poisonous snowflakes. Some were compromising pictures of her and Liam. Some were snapshots of her former life of luxury. And a few were blurry, long-lens shots of Sophia painting in her studio. "Look, all of you look. This is the talented artist you're all celebrating. Everything she has is stolen from my man, with my money." Chloe wailed hysterically as the guards grabbed her by the arms and began dragging her out. "Let go of me, you lapdogs. Arthur Kane, come out here. You have the guts to cheat, but not to face me." "Sophia, you bitch, you'll get what's coming to you. When he gets tired of you, he'll throw you out like trash. I'll be waiting to see you end up worse than me." Her curses and sobs faded down the hallway and were finally silenced by the closing of an elevator. The Starlight Room was plunged into a dead silence. The scattered photos on the floor were a tableau of a shattered nightmare. Sophia stood stunned, ashen-faced, swaying slightly as if she might faint. The vicious, insane accusations and the sordid pictures were like filthy ice picks, piercing the fragile bubble of joy and hope she had been living in all day. The art history professor was the first to react, rushing to her side. "Ms. Hayes, are you all right? Don't listen to that mad woman. She's clearly unstable." The director, his face dark with fury, signaled for the staff to clean up the mess. "My deepest apologies, Ms. Hayes. This incident is deeply regrettable. We will move you to another room at once." But Sophia pushed the professor's hand away. Her eyes were vacant as she looked at them, her voice barely a whisper. Was she telling the truth? Mr. Kane, is he? She wasn't stupid. As unhinged as Chloe was, the fragments of information in her tirade connected a little too perfectly with the doubts and unease Sophia had been feeling for days. The unbelievable contract, the rumors of a Porsche and a luxury condo, the special treatment from SVA. Was all of it really just because of her talent? The professor and the director hesitated, their shared look of discomfort a silent confession. I need some air," Sophia mumbled. She turned and stumbled toward the door, her roommate grabbing her arm to steady her. Just then, her phone rang. A specific notification tone. She flinched as if struck by an electric current. Slowly, stiffly, she pulled out her phone. The screen was lit up. A new WhatsApp message from me. "Enjoying the show?" Just 3 words. No comfort, no explanation, no denial. Sophia stared at those 3 words, her pupils contracting, the last traces of color draining from her face. It was as if she could finally see the cold, cruel, manipulating hand behind the beautiful curtain that had been drawn for her. Every last shred of hope, every comforting lie she had told herself, shattered in that single moment. She understood. From the very beginning, she had been nothing but a tool. A beautifully convenient instrument used to punish a traitor and to stage a real-life revenge drama. Her talent might be real, but the opportunity had been bought and paid for with another woman's despair and a man's cold, calculated game. The phone slipped from her trembling hand and hit the marble floor with a sharp crack. The screen shattered, just like the world that had been so carefully assembled for her, only to be smashed to pieces. She didn't pick up the phone. She didn't look at anyone. She just walked like a ghost toward the door. Her silhouette was as fragile as paper, as if the night wind from the window could blow her away. The operations director started to say something, but stopped with a sigh, signaling the staff to let her pass. In the Starlight Room, all that remained was the mess on the floor and 2 fellowship board members, exchanging complex and troubled looks. Outside, the city's neon lights burned on, brilliant and cold, indifferent to it all. I sat in my office, watching the security feed of Sophia's ghost-like departure from the restaurant, and raised a glass of whiskey to my lips. The liquor was smooth. The climax of the show had just arrived. And for the director, there is no greater nourishment than the anguish of his actors. Sophia Hayes vanished from Aura's security cameras, a single drop of water swallowed by the city night. The mess in the Starlight Room would be handled by professionals. The 2 fellowship board members would manage the fallout, comforting and guiding her with carefully chosen words. My words. Chloe's dramatic entrance had been more effective than I could have hoped. It not only ripped apart Sophia's remaining illusions, but also carved a deep, jagged wound in her fragile, newfound self-esteem. Wounds need healing, and it would seem that I was the only one with the medicine. I waited patiently. Less than an hour later, my private line rang. It was Davies. "Mr. Ms. Hayes did not return to the studio apartment. She went to a small bar near the Arts District. Professor Albright from the Fellowship Board, the art historian, has coincidentally run into her and is currently consoling her. Ms. Hayes is in a very low state, repeatedly asking about the situation between you, Ms. Vance and Mr. Carter. Professor Albright is, per your instructions, revealing a curated version of the truth, emphasizing Ms. Vance's betrayal and your own pain, as well as your desire to support true artistic talent, while remaining vague about your specific methods." "Excellent," I replied. "Let her understand the why, but not the how. A certain amount of mystery maintains respect. Albright knows what to do next." "Understood." Professor Albright will frame your actions in a way that is justifiable, while hinting that Ms. Hayes is the ultimate beneficiary and should feel no guilt, but should instead seize this opportunity. Davies's reporting was flawless. Furthermore, Ms. Hayes's dropped phone has been recovered, data intact. A new replacement phone is ready and will be presented to her by Professor Albright at an appropriate moment. See to it. Hanging up, I pictured the scene in that little bar. Professor Albright, playing the role of a wise mentor, gently explaining the history between us with a mix of truth and fiction. And Sophia, a girl just viciously slapped by reality, would, under the influence of alcohol and emotional turmoil, cling to this carefully crafted narrative like a piece of driftwood. She would begin to believe that she was, perhaps, merely lucky, the one who benefited from the fallout of a rich man's game. Human nature rarely holds up under such targeted manipulation. The next day was quiet. Sophia didn't contact me. She seemed to have accepted Albright's counsel. She returned to her studio, but she was different, quieter, more withdrawn, channeling all her energy into her painting, as if trying to purge the chaos and emotion onto the canvas. The fellowship reported that her work had entered an explosive new phase, her style becoming more forceful, even darkly sharp. Good. Pain is the fertilizer of art. Her value was increasing. Chloe, on the other hand, was sinking completely. To save his company, her father began liquidating assets to cover his debts, leaving him no time or energy for the daughter who had caused it all. He reportedly locked Chloe in the house and cut off her internet access to prevent her from causing more trouble. The once celebrated socialite had become an embarrassing secret hidden away. A few more days passed. The timing felt right. It was time to give this drama a sufficiently complete ending. I had Davies arrange an art salon in the Arts District, hosted by the Fellowship. We invited a few influential critics, collectors, and media figures. The official purpose was to observe the work of several emerging artists, but the real focus, of course, was Sophia. On the afternoon of the salon, I went myself. I arrived without fanfare, accompanied only by Davies, as if on a whim. The door to Sophia's studio was open, already filled with people. Sophia stood before her new series of paintings, quietly explaining her creative process to a couple of critics. She wore a black turtleneck that made her face seem paler, but her gaze was focused. While a hint of nervousness still lingered, she carried herself with a new, quiet confidence. When she saw me at the doorway, she faltered for a fraction of a second. A complex mix of emotions, panic, awe, and perhaps a touch of resigned submission, flickered in her eyes. But she recovered quickly, gave me a slight nod of acknowledgement, and continued her explanation. I didn't interrupt, simply observed from the edge of the crowd. Her paintings had indeed gained a new power. In their twisted lines and oppressive colors, one could see struggle and pain. The critics were clearly impressed, nodding frequently. The salon proceeded smoothly. It was near the end, as guests began to mingle over drinks, that the next surprise arrived. Chloe appeared at the studio door. She looked even more ravaged than she had at the restaurant. Her clothes were wrinkled and stained, her hair was a mess, and her eyes held the wild, desperate glare of someone with nothing left to lose. She looked as if she had escaped from a prison, running on pure, frantic adrenaline. Her gaze immediately found Sophia, the center of attention, and then me, standing off to the side. Her eyes turned bloodshot, the look of a cornered animal spotting its tormentors. "Sophia, you bitch, you still have the nerve to stand here and pretend you're some kind of saint," she shrieked, shoving her way through the crowd of shocked guests. Everyone froze, their gazes shifting to her in disbelief and disgust. Where was security? Coincidentally, a step behind. Sophia's face went white. She instinctively took a step back. But Chloe's target wasn't just her. She spun toward me, tears and mucus streaming down her face, her voice a ragged scream. "Arthur Kane, you did this to me for her. My family is ruined. My father has disowned me. I have nothing left. Are you satisfied now? Are you?" She lunged toward me, but Davies intercepted her with calm, immovable precision. "Do you hate me that much? Did you have to find a cheap replacement just to torture me?" she wailed, her hateful glare returning to Sophia. "And you think you've won. Let me tell you, what he did to me today, he'll do to you tomorrow. He's a monster with no heart. You'll end up worse than me, you. Enough. My voice was quiet, but it carried a cold authority that cut through her hysteria, silencing the entire room. All eyes were on me. I took 2 slow steps forward, my gaze settling on Chloe's twisted, tear-streaked face. I felt nothing. It was like looking at a piece of trash. Are you finished making a scene? I asked mildly. My cold stare made her flinch, her momentum instantly deflating. But desperation fueled one last shriek. No, this isn't a scene. I want you to tell me why. What did I ever do to you that was so wrong? Why did you have to destroy me? Why? I repeated the word, a cold smile touching my lips. Because it was dirty. I don't like it when others touch my things. And I especially don't like it when the people who touch them come back and flaunt the filth in my face. My gaze swept over her, as if she were contaminated with some foul disease. The color drained completely from Chloe's face. Her lips trembled, but no sound came out. My words were more venomous than any insult, nailing her permanently to a cross of her own making. I turned away from her, addressing the silent, stunned guests. My voice returned to its normal, even tone. My apologies for spoiling the mood. A private matter. I hope you'll forgive the interruption. The guests mumbled their understanding, their expressions a mix of emotions, but no one dared to speak. Finally, I looked at Sophia. She was pale and trembling, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and a kind of numb, dawning comprehension. Ms. Hayes, my voice softened, adopting a tone of apology and protectiveness. I'm sorry you were subjected to that. Your talent should not be disturbed by such ugliness. The fellowship will be increasing security here. With that, I gave Davies a slight nod. He immediately stepped toward the now catatonic Chloe and made a firm, this-way gesture. Ms. Vance, if you please. This time, security was right on cue, assisting the utterly broken Chloe from a studio. The drama was over. I glanced around at the guests. Their expressions had shifted from shock to contemplation. Their gazes, when they fell on Sophia, now held a strange mix of pity and speculation about the nature of my protection. This was precisely the effect I wanted. Without another word to Sophia, I turned and left. I knew that after this, any last embers of defiance or doubt in her would be extinguished. She would understand her position more clearly than ever. A valuable work of art to be protected, owned by a collector with absolute power. Resistance was futile. Only obedience would grant her sanctuary and success. As for Chloe, she was finished. Today's public humiliation had stripped her of any remaining value, even as a tool. All that awaited her now was an endless, silent darkness. Back in the car, the city lights streaked by. Davies handed me a tablet displaying several photos just taken at the salon. I scrolled through them. The ones of me protecting Sophia and rebuking Chloe were particularly well framed, making me look calm and powerful, Chloe crazed and pathetic, and Sophia fragile and helpless. Select a few of the more poignant ones and have them leaked, I instructed. Of course. Davies took the tablet. Public opinion needed to be shaped. I wanted everyone to understand the fate of a traitor and the rewards that came with obedience. This game, which had not lasted long, had finally reached a satisfying conclusion. All the pieces were exactly where they belonged. And I, the director, was the sole winner. The fallout from the art salon drama dissipated more quickly than expected. A few leaked photos, paired with objective commentary from controlled media outlets, effectively steered the narrative. A crazed ex-fiancé harasses an emerging artist, while the magnanimous Mr. Kane steps in to defend talent. Sophia's name, now haloed in a glow of sympathy and intrigue, gained even more recognition. The asking price for her paintings quietly climbed another tier. Chloe Vance vanished entirely. The rumor was that her father, furious and desperate, had checked her into a private wellness retreat in a countryside known for its strict policies, cutting off all contact with the outside world. Her life, which had plummeted from the clouds into the mud, now ended in a quiet room with a barred window. The Vance family company was on life support, but no one associated it with the name Arthur Kane anymore. Liam Carter. The name was a forgotten stain, painted over and gone. Sophia became quieter, more focused. She rarely left the studio, pouring all of her time and energy into her work. The fellowship reported that her new paintings were increasingly dark and sharp, possessing a painful, explosive power that stunned the critics. She no longer initiated contact with me. She accepted all of the fellowship's arrangements without question, operating like the most obedient, efficient art-producing machine. This was good, and yet it was almost too peaceful. I enjoy control, but I also require a subtle, manageable ripple to maintain my interest. An opportunity arose quickly. Davies reported that a shipment of special imported pigments and materials, crucial for Sophia's next major series, was stuck in customs and could be delayed for weeks. "I see," was my only reply. I did nothing. I let the anxiety fester for 2 days. Only when Professor Albright from the fellowship reluctantly reached out to me, explaining that Sophia was deeply distressed and it was affecting her work, did I act. I casually mentioned to Davies, "Give my contact at the Port Authority a call. Tell him a friend of mine has an urgent shipment stuck. Ask if he can help expedite it. Keep it quiet." A single phone call. That afternoon, a relieved Professor Albright called Sophia to tell her the problem had been miraculously solved and the materials would arrive the next day. On the other end, Sophia's gratitude was colored with a complex tone of relief and a deeper, more resigned sense of powerlessness. A few weeks later, another hiccup occurred. The internal SVA committee meeting to finalize the Venice Biennale nomination reached an impasse. Another professor with influential connections was pushing hard for his own student. Dean Miller, once again, had no choice but to call me, his voice strained with difficulty. I listened, tapping my fingers on my desk. "Artistic decisions should be based on professional merit," I said calmly. "I have full faith in your and the committee's expertise. However, sometimes a strong personal agenda can compromise professional integrity, don't you think?" Dean Miller was silent for a moment. "You are absolutely right, Mr. Kane. Academic integrity is paramount. I know exactly what needs to be done." The next day, the other professor, due to a health issue, withdrew from the committee. Sophia's nomination was secured. I never spoke to Sophia about these interventions, but she knew. Professor Albright would let a detail slip unintentionally. Dean Miller would have someone reassure her. The whispers in her small artistic circle would reach her, tinged with envy. "Sophia, you're so lucky to have a man like Arthur Kane clearing the way for you." She was the most prized flower in my greenhouse. I could control the sun and the rain, I could conjure a storm, and then, at the perfect moment, I could provide the umbrella. Her entire career was in my hands. She knew it, and she had no choice but to depend on it. This silent taming was far more effective than any overt confrontation. A month later, her new series, born from that period of turmoil, was complete. Professor Albright strongly suggested a small, private viewing for a hand-picked list of top-tier collectors and critics. I agreed. The viewing was held in her studio. That evening, it was filled with the city's elite. Sophia, dressed in a custom-made charcoal gray gown provided by the fellowship, stood before her work. Her expression was calm, almost aloof, as she described her vision to the guests. She spoke with a new confidence, no longer the timid graduate. I arrived late when the event was in full swing. My entrance immediately shifted the focus of the room. A path cleared for me as people offered respectful greetings. Sophia saw me, paused her explanation for half a second, then gave me a slight bow, her eyes downcast, her expression unreadable. I nodded in return, my gaze sweeping over her paintings. They were stunning. Heavy darkness, struggling lines, torn colors. Yet in the despair, there was a savage life force. Excellent work. I stopped in front of the largest canvas and studied it for a long time. At its center was a blurred, twisted, humanoid shape in a dark crimson, pierced and bound by countless cold, metallic lines against a backdrop of deep, bruised blue and black. "What is the title of this piece?" I asked, turning to Sophia, who stood beside me. The room fell silent. All eyes were on her. Sophia lifted her head, and for the first time, looked directly at me. Her eyes were dark and deep, like still, ancient wells. She was silent for a few seconds before her lips parted to utter a single word. "Gift." A few knowing, Sycophantic chuckles rippled through the guests. They clearly interpreted the title as an expression of gratitude for my patronage. I smiled, my eyes returning to the painting. Only I, and perhaps she, could hear the ice-cold irony and the silent scream contained in that single word. The pierced, bound crimson figure, the cold lines, the oppressive background. This was not a gift. This was a naked depiction of her own entrapment in the beautiful cage I had built for her. It was her own small, secret, final act of rebellion. Interesting. Very interesting. I felt no anger. On the contrary, I was pleased. Complete obedience is boring. A little bit of defiance, a touch of a thorn, only enhances the pleasure of control. Excellent, I said, my tone unreadable. A powerful title for a powerful work. I turned to Davies, my voice low but audible to everyone nearby. The fellowship will acquire this entire series. The price, 1.5 times the current top market valuation. A collective, stifled gasp went through the room. It was a fortune. It was a golden, undeniable seal on her value and status. Sophia swayed, almost imperceptibly, the color draining slightly from her face. This generosity was just a heavier set of shackles. Even her right to protest silently through her art had been bought and paid for. "Thank you, Mr. Kane," she said, her voice hoarse as she lowered her head. The viewing concluded in a flurry of awe and congratulations. The guests departed. The studio slowly emptied, leaving only a few staff members to clean up. I stood by the window, looking out at the scattered lights of the arts district. Sophia approached and stopped a few feet behind me. Why? Her voice was very quiet, laced with an exhausted confusion. Why do all of this? Intervening for me, giving me resources by my art, even tolerating my disrespect. She didn't have to specify. We both knew she was talking about the painting's title. I didn't turn around, simply watched her blurred reflection in the glass. "Because you're worth it." My answer was pristine and proper, but I allowed a sliver of my true, cold amusement to color the end of it. And because the process of taking a beautiful object and polishing it under my own hand until it shines brighter than anything else is, in itself, a great pleasure. I turned to face her, to look at her pale face. As for the disrespect, I leaned in closer, my voice dropping to a whisper only she could hear. It's like the unique, fine crackle in the glaze of a perfect piece of porcelain. It doesn't detract from the value. In fact, it adds a certain charm. Sophia's pupils contracted. Her fingertips trembled. She understood exactly what I meant. I was allowing her to keep her pathetic little rebellion because I found it amusing. It wasn't respect. It was a more profound, more condescending form of play. She looked into my eyes and saw no warmth, only the bottomless calm of someone for whom everything is a game, and who is perhaps growing a little bored. She finally, slowly, lowered her head. All the fight, all the sharp edges, seemed to melt away, leaving nothing behind. I understand. Her voice was as soft as a sigh. In that moment, she was truly and completely tamed. I straightened up and smiled faintly. "Get some rest. Don't disappoint me at the Venice Biennale." With that, I turned and with Davies left the studio. The night air was cool. As I settled into the car, Davies handed me a portfolio. "Mr. Kane, this is the investment evaluation report for the emerging tech sector for the next quarter. There are several very promising ventures." I took the file, but didn't open it immediately. The city outside was still a riot of light and motion, a physical manifestation of endless ambition and desire. Sophia's story, for me, was over. She would become a rising star in the art world, branded with my mark, living her life in the golden cage I had woven for her. But my world is vast, and there is never just one game. I opened the file, my eyes settling on the first project summary. A new board was set. "Back to the office," I said. The car moved smoothly through the city, the neon lights painting fleeting, brilliant strokes across the window, tracing the contours of a cold and magnificent metropolis. Inside, I turned the pages of the next quarter's investment report, the crisp paper making a soft, rustling sound. Sophia's pale, submissive face, the twisted crimson in the painting titled Gift, Chloe's final, hysterical screams, Liam's puddle of despair. All these images flashed and receded like the cityscape outside, leaving no lasting impression. They were just pieces in one of countless games. Each had found its final square on the board, some bright, some dim, some removed entirely. The pleasure of control is in the playing, not the outcome. "We've arrived, Mr. Kane." Davies's voice came from the front seat. The car stopped at the private elevator in the building's subterranean garage. I closed the portfolio and handed it back to him. "Project review meeting, 9 a.m. tomorrow." "Yes, Mr. Kane." The elevator doors slid open silently. I stepped inside, my reflection a cool, impassive figure in the mirrored walls. The numbers climbed, ascending to new heights toward a wider board and a more complex game. The play never ends. The stage just changes, and there is only ever one winner.